Now this video is about catching pike on a fly. Oh yeah, there we go. Oh, there we go, there we go. And then these two. It's just on 100, it's just on a metre. Hey guys, welcome back to The Occasional Angler. This video is going to show you how to catch pike on a fly. Now, hands up, I am a complete novice at this. I have done it about 15 years ago. Now I'm getting back into it again. I've been doing it for the last month or so. And so this video is me showing you what I've learned over the past month, and hopefully it's enough information to get you out there so you can catch your first pike on the fly. If you don't want to know about any of that stuff and you just want to see fishing, go to the end of this video and I've got some footage of me catching pike and using the skills and the things which I'm just about to teach you here and putting them in practice. Okay, so we're going to break this video down into 4 sections roughly. We're going to have a look at gear, then we're going to have a look at leader construction, then we'll have a look at some flies, and then we'll have a quick chat about locations, and then we'll get out of here and we'll go fishing. So let's start with gear. This is a rod which I got at Christmas time. This is a pike specific fly rod. It is a 10 weight. And a 10 weight means that you can turn over some pretty big flies. This one is made by Vision. It's the Grandmama. Quite an expensive rod, to be honest. I got it in a sale, but these are quite expensive, these rods. You don't need anything quite as expensive as this. It's a 4-piece rod, so it breaks down really nice and easy to transport. So that's the rod. You'll find with pike rods, I mean, this one is actually quite a fast action rod, but quite a lot of the pike fly rods are a little bit more of a through action, more of a sort of medium action rod. And that is so they can load up and chuck out those big flies easier. The reel, this is a Witchwood PDR reel. It's size 9 to 11. Large arbor. That just means that you can bring in the line a bit quicker. The honest truth is with fly fishing reels, they don't really do a huge amount more than just really hold your line. So it's very easy to spend a lot of money on these reels, and some of them are absolute works of art, but the reality is you'd be better place to spend that money on a decent rod and decent line. So that takes me neatly onto lines. So I do the majority of my fly fishing for pike, well, actually I do all of it on the river. So I can't really comment on fishing on lakes other than you probably want a sink line, depending on the depth of your water. But for rivers, and this is what we're going to be talking about, I've got 4 different lines and one which I've got on here, which I'll explain to you in a second. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about the line. So the line goes all the way through. Generally, fly line is weighted and it's got a head, so very fast with pike flies, because they're so heavy, they tend to put very sort of heavy heads on them. And so you can cast quickly and turn over big flies. The fly lines, all modern fly lines, really have what's called a welded loop at the end. This one has a huge welded loop at the end, but basically it's a loop which is actually built into the fly line, and you attach your leader with a loop-to-loop knot. So you put a loop at the end of your leader and just literally slip it over, and that's it. So for rivers, and it's dependent on when you're fishing and what the river's like. So obviously there's no golden bullet for all of this, but I mean you can get it down into sort of 3 different lines. So a floating line, that's standard what you use for trout fishing generally. That means the line does not sink at all, it just stays on the surface. That's fine if the pike are high or you've got a shallow river, or summertime when the pike are sitting higher and likely to take something off the surface. What you can do with this is you can have a floating line and a sink tip, so it drops down. So if you've got a river which is 3 or 4 foot, well, if you've got a sink tip, it will get you right down there. So your leader has actually got a sink, is built in weight into it to get it down. So that's one way of doing it. And that means that the flow of the river has less action on it than with some of these sinking lines. When it's on the surface, it's easier to mend the line up the river. So that's a floating line. The next one, and probably the most relevant one out of all of them, at least if you were going to get one line, this would probably be the line which you would get, is an intermediate. An intermediate is halfway house between a floating line and a sinking line. So it just slowly sinks to the water. So what it does is it allows you, or gives you the opportunity to count down and let your fly get pulled down through the water column. So intermediate, if you're going to get one line, that would be the line which I think most pike fly anglers would suggest for a river. The last one is a sinking line. Now, a sinking line does exactly what it says. It sinks at a certain rate, and that's indicated by the number. So this is a sink 3, which it's basically telling you how quick it drops down. I think it's 3 inches per second. I think that's correct. But anyway, and they go up to 6, I think, or maybe they go even heavier than that. But that means that you can get your fly and your line down very quickly. So those are your main lines. Now, I've been very lucky to chat to a couple of really experienced fly anglers, and I was shown this as a technique. Now this is a shooting line. A shooting line is essentially the bit of line at the back of a fly line which has no weight or very little weight, and then these are designed for fly fishing for salmon. So the shooting line is at the back, and then when you're salmon fishing you might want a slightly heavier line, and so you can attach a head onto this, and again it's loop to loop, so the loops just sort of go through each other and just pull tight. So you could attach a really sort of heavy shooting head onto this, or if you wanted something a bit more finessey, you could attach a lighter shooting head onto the end of this. But with this technique, you don't use a shooting head at all. You just use the running line. So this is a shooting line. This one's made by Rio. This one's called a grip shooter, and it's technical shooting line. So that's it there. And you use this with weighted flies. So you either add weight to your leader, and that can be in the way of adding a little tungsten weight, or you actually use jig flies which have got a weight on the hook themselves. But you use that as the sort of casting weight. So it's a sort of, it's a halfway house almost between spinning and fly fishing. But what it means, and the beauty of it is that you do not have to have a back cast. So it's literally just one lob cast. So for all of you who are going over to waters where it's very, very difficult to make a back cast to make your front cast, so you don't have enough space behind you, this is an invaluable technique. And honestly, it changed the way I was fishing. I started using it only a few days ago and immediately I saw the benefits of it. So we've gone over rod, reel, line. Leaders is the next thing. Now we will go more in depth after this into leaders, but essentially you've got two types, potentially three types of leader. Now you're fishing for pike. Pike have got sharp teeth and they will cut through line. So you have to be very specific about what you're doing. I'm using titanium, single-stranded titanium leader. That's one. And that goes back to a fluorocarbon backing. You want something, the fluorocarbon back part of the leader wants to be around sort of 40 to 50 pounds, something stiff enough that it helps turn over. Now in trout fishing, you use long leaders because trout have got excellent eyesight. Pike are not so leader shy, so having a shorter leader, you know, this is sort of like 3 to 4 foot is absolutely fine. It helps you turn over those big flies. And the way we've got it here, I've actually crimped this on here. So you've got a spiral snap, size 3, crimped onto a titanium leader. Titanium leader, you can crunch it up, you know, really give it some, and it's got no memory. So you can use this and use this and use this and use this. Then we've connected directly from the fluorocarbon onto the wire using an Albright knot. So that's that there. And then we go all the way back and we've produced a loop at the end, and that's a perfection loop or a surgeon's loop. The other type of leader is using very, very heavy fluorocarbon. So this is 0.90. So the titanium, which I was using, is a single-stranded titanium. It's about 40 pounds or something like that, and that's what that looks like. For a leader using fluorocarbon, I'm using this. Now this is 0.90 or 1 millimeter. This one's Fox Rage. Several companies do it. You want hard fluorocarbon, not soft fluorocarbon. It's incredibly abrasion resistant. I've caught several fish on this leader and there's literally no, you can feel a little bit of scuffing, tiniest bit of scuffing, but there's no structural damage to that leader at all. I've got a spiral snap at the end to just clip my fly onto. I've used a PALOMAR knot here to just knot that on, and that works really well. That is never going anywhere. On this specific one, I've put a 3 gram Texas weight, and that's to help. It's like a Texas rig, it just helps it get right down, but there's still a weightless fly back here, but it just helps get the fly down through the water column. And then we're back onto a sort of 40, 50 pound fluorocarbon leader with a loop at the end. And that just connects straight onto the welded loop on your fly line. Okay, so other things which we need. Tools, let's have a look. So here's a selection of tools which I've got. So these are basically clippers to be able to cut your line, cut your wire. A pair of those are really useful. When you're out fishing, you need to have some long-nosed pliers like this to be able to get right down inside. If you get a deeply hooked fish, you need to be able to get in there and work on it properly. So short ones for, you know, near the mouth, long ones if it's deeply hooked. It's also recommended that you have some kind of wire cutters. So if you've hooked it in a place, if you've hooked your fish in a place where it's not going to be possible to get that hook out without damaging the fish, you can potentially just chop the shank of the hook, and that will rust out of the fish. Whilst we're talking about that, debarb your hooks. There's absolutely no need to have a barb on the flies. It's a single hook, they're big hooks. If you're fighting the fish properly, it will not come off. You need to have constant tension on a fish anyway. You do not need a barb, and it's just an extra something which can go wrong when you're dehooking it. If you use a barbless hook, that hook just comes straight out and it's done. So top tip, get rid of the barb. Other things which you're going to need are a net. Don't underestimate getting a reasonable size net, okay? This one extends out. If you're on a riverbank, very useful to have an extendable net. It's big enough to get a big fish in. Even small pike are quite long. They're a long fish. I'll tell you a story. I actually went out the other day and I was in a rush and I thought, I'll just take my small street net, which is a net designed really for chub, perch. I went out, I caught 100 centimetre pike, and I was looking at it and I was just like, this is not getting into this net, and it really didn't. I had to do a lot of jiggery pokery to get that fish to get into that net. Okay, let's get it out of the water. So just don't underestimate it. Use a big net. You need weighing scales. This net is brilliant. It's actually got scales built into the handle. So once you've got it, you can actually weigh your fish, which helps, but otherwise, have some scales with you. You might catch that monster fish and you want to know how big it is, or perhaps you don't. I mean, personally for me, I'm not that bothered. I'm not a trophy hunter in that sense, but I mean, if you want to claim that 20, you got to weigh it. Right, an invaluable bit of equipment, a casting tray with a lovely TOA sticker on it, may I add. So this basically goes around your waist, and your line, when you're stripping it back, goes into here. That's that. That thing will save you more hassle than you can ever imagine when you're fly fishing. When you're fly fishing and you're stripping down into line onto the bank, you end up stepping on it. It ends up going around branches. It ends up hitting bits of grass and wrapping around that. You get none of that when you use a line tray. Use a line tray. All of the top guys use them when they're fishing on the riverbank, and there's a reason why they do it. It just makes your life so much nicer. Last thing which I will mention, glasses. So fly fishing, you've got to look after these fellas, right? There's no fish big enough or important enough to not wear glasses. When you're casting, you're casting a hook around your eyes. If you've got glasses, at least it will protect you if you get like the fly come and hit you around here. These are photochromic. So what I've noticed is a lot of sunglasses make it too dark to be able to see during the day. So photochromic ones stay clear until you get a lot of sunlight, and then they darken down according to the amount of light. And these are also polarized, very important, so you can actually see through the water and see what you're casting at, because quite often if you're looking, you'll see the fish, especially on rivers where it's not too deep. So photochromic if you can, and polarized. Top tip, I got these from AliExpress. They cost me about £3. So don't go out there and smash a load of money on something really expensive. You can get exactly what you need for a few quid off AliExpress. So if you want to know where I got them from, ping me a line and leave a comment, and I'll put a link in the comments. Okay, let's talk leaders. So you've strung up your fly line all the way along, and at the end of your fly line, you've got a welded loop. This happens to be an absolutely huge welded loop, but it is a welded loop. So there's that loop on your end of your fly line. At the end of your leader, which is you know, 3 to 4 foot long, what you do is you create a perfection loop here. Now that's what a perfection loop looks like. I'm not sure if you can see that. And I'll show you how to create a perfection loop in 2 seconds. But you take that, you pass it over the top, so it goes literally through like that. Then you take the end of your leader and you pass that through like that. And what you've done is you've created a loop to loop. And if I show you like this, that's what happens, and that just pulls tight. Okay, so loop to loop, now that's in place. That will hold your leader and it's very straight. So your leader, you use a butt section. Let's say, at the moment I'm actually using 60-pound fluorocarbon, so that's 0.75. I've got maybe, let's say 2 foot there, and then that is tied directly to some 90-pound, 80-pound, 0.90 fluorocarbon, and that's tied like that. Then we've got maybe 30 to 40 centimetres of leader material. Now pike can't bite through this. It's really, really tough stuff. And I've got, I've attached that to a spiral snap here with a PALOMAR knot. So first of all, let me show you how to do a perfection loop. So let's have a look at this. We've got the main running part and we've got the tag end here. So all you do is you create a loop like that. So it's behind, so that's your running line, that's your tag end there. Just drag it down a little bit. Now what you do is you take another loop and you come round like this, so over the top and round, and just clamp them together. And what you should have is something like that. And you can make this a little bit smaller, but essentially you've got those two things open like that. This line, the tag end, comes through there, and then you just feed the front loop through the back loop, which sounds so much easier when you haven't got big thumbs. But basically this is what happens. Now you know it's done right if that comes out perpendicular to the knot, which it has done there. And that is your perfection loop. Snip that down, melt it back a little bit, and that's for your loop to loop connection. Next, let me show you the knot which connects the base of the back of your leader to the actual tippet section, the bite leader. That's that there. So this is how to connect these two. First thing we do is we take this and we create a loop knot, nice and open, and we turn it once, and then we go through it twice, like that. And if you loosen that down, what it creates is a kind of figure of 8 like that. Now we follow the line up through here, following the line, and then we follow the line back down through here, like so. So what you've done is you just followed straight through like that. Now you take, let's say, 3 inches through there. Now you can tighten that down, boom, as so. Got that double line like that. We double it around again on itself, back over, and then we return that 3 times back through. So 1, 2, and then 3. And then you can just wet that, tighten that down like that, and then these 2 just knock down, wet them, pull from both ends, get them nice and tight, and that will connect those 2 lines together. And lastly, let me show you a PALOMAR knot, a very, very strong knot that will never fail. I'll show you how to do that. So let's pretend this is our spiral snap here, and let's pretend that this is our main line. So what we do is we double it over, as so. You probably need, let's say, 3 inches, something like that. Fold it over, and that goes through there. So we got it like that. Now loop it back, so we got it as so. Now we do an overhanded knot like that. So you've got that like this. Now we take this loop, and that just goes straight over the whole thing and back down. And what you'll end up with something like that. Now the trick here, put your finger through this loop. A lot of people don't do this, and as a result, and then just push backwards, push back. And what happens is the knot is now formed up there, like that. Once you push back, that knot, wet this down, and then that knot will just slowly slide down into position. And that's a PALOMAR knot. You can chop it down here, and then if you're careful, leave a little tag end and then burn that tag end back. With fluorocarbon, it will create a sort of little knob on the end of it, and that can't pull back through the knot. And that knot will never give up. That is one of the strongest knots available. The terminal tackle which we use for this, you can either use these spiral snaps, a size 3, very, very tough, like that. And that allows you to just clip on your fly, and there's a little bit of metal there as well, so it gives you a bit of bite protection there. Or what I've found is I like to have a little bit of weight on the line, on the sort of end of the leader anyway, to help get the fly down. So I've been using these, which I actually use for shore jigging, but they're actually really perfect. So they are a swivel with a spiral snap. So you've got a bit of movement there, and then the spiral snap. And these are size 1, and I think they've got a breaking strain of about 80 or 90 pounds, so they're going to be really good. Right, the other leader which we've got is a titanium trace. Titanium traces are great. They're virtually memoryless, and you can catch on them. Again, we've got a size 3 terminal spiral snap on the end. Then I've done several loops of the titanium, so it's kind of like a shoelace knot done 3 times, and it creates this little loop here. Now that will hold, but then you take the tag end and you just basically crimp it down. But the actual strength in this is all here, so those 3 or 4 turns to create that little loop at the end there is actually the part of the knot which holds on a single strand titanium. You can also use, so this is what single strand titanium looks like. You can also use 7 strand titanium, which allows you to do more knots as well. And it's more it's got more movement in it. So single strand titanium is quite, you know, quite stiff. Then we come back here, we connect it to 40, 50 pound, 60 pound fluorocarbon leader. Again, probably about 2 to 3 feet. And I've used an Albright knot here to connect that. And then we get back to a perfection loop at the end, and that's what you use to go loop to loop with your fly line. Okay, let's have a little look at flies. This is my fly box. Here you go. You need something which is big enough to sort of like take big streamers. The flies which you're using for pike fishing generally is either a single or a double hook. When I say a double hook, 2 singles in tandem, so one at the front and one at the back. Mostly I use single hooks, to be quite honest with you. The flies are anywhere between sort of 4 inches, 3-4 inches up to 10-11 inches, and depending on where you're fishing and what you're trying to catch. There's a couple of interesting things. First of all, black flies seem to be quite a thing. So a lot of people talk about, you know, using black patterns. I mean, black could imitate an eel, but apparently there are some quite valid reasons why black flies work. Now, they might look a bit odd in the water. I've used them a bit and I've had a bit of success, but some top anglers really do sort of swear by these. If you're fishing normal river conditions, a really good place to start would probably be that kind of bait fish imitation. When we're talking about that, we're talking about roach, perch, well perhaps not perch so much, but they do like to eat perch. So we're talking about flies which are kind of got the sort of light greys, silvers, a lot of tinsel in them, so they're shiny. So, you know, something like that would definitely sort of mimic a bait fish. And, you know, I've had particular luck on these sort of like roachy kind of patterns, a lot of greys, a bit of orange to sort of like put a bit of colour in there. Eyes are really useful as a strike point, a single hook which has been debarbed in there. So this kind of colour and coloration, you can't go wrong. Also, you might want to look at jig flies, which I mentioned before, which have actually got a weighted head in them. So this has got a 2 or 3 gram weight on there, and the hook is upturned. Now, the great thing about that is it can go down onto the bottom of the river, and you're not going to be hooking up all of the garbage on the bottom of the river. So these are a really effective way of doing it, and that works really well with the shooting heads. Without the shooting heads, with just like the running line. So this and this are a killer combination. You use the weight of that fly and you don't do a traditional back cast, you just lob it. So you've got jig flies, standard flies with a single hook, but when that gets down, that will hook up stuff on the bottom. Then you can also get pusher flies. Now that's flies like this. Now these flies have been designed to create a lot of disruption in the water. So they've got this flat head on them. Again, this is a pusher fly as well. And so they create a lot of disturbance in the water when they're going through. They also, that one's got a little rattle in it. It's also got 2 hooks, so one there, and then it's got a stinger in the tail, as you can see there. And then this one's got a little curly tail, so those just sort of, I mean, we're starting to get into lures really there. That is really a lure once it's got a tail like that, I'd say. But anyway, these kind of pusher flies, they push a lot of water, so they create a lot of disturbance in the water. Pike can pick up on those on their lateral lines and are able to locate those flies better. So these kind of flies, they work in clear water, well, they work in all conditions, but they will they'll be more present in the water. They'll be more, the pike will be able to sense them more. These dark kind of colours are ideal for muddy water as well. So if you've got low visibility in the water, something which displaces water with that push ahead and gives you a dark silhouette, perfect for those kind of coloured conditions. The other fly which you'd want in coloured conditions, or the other colour you'd want in coloured conditions, would probably be like those bright fire tiger kind of colours, which are very unnatural, but they cut through muddy water sometimes. For clear conditions, you want more natural colours, natural coloured flies, those kind of whitey greys with silver. That's better. Okay, so we've gone through flies. I was told by some people, you know, that actually with pike fishing, it's not so much about the flies; it's more about the presentation. I don't think, you know, if you put a reasonable fly in front of like a pike, you're likely to get a result, because they don't see them very often, and they look so natural in the water. There's quite a few people who are tying really nice flies out there. Fulling Mill do some nice flies. They do some good perch patterns and a black pattern as well. Hector, look him up. He built some of these flies for me. Brilliant. He's on Instagram. We've also got Bauer. So Bauer flies are really good. Can get expensive though. Okay, so we've talked about flies, so let's put that away. Let's talk about locations. So it's same deal as when you're lure fishing or trying to find predatory fish when you're fishing normally as a lure angler. On the river, what you're looking for are those deeper holes, especially when it gets cooler like this time of year, when pike fishing is a thing. So the deeper you get, the more stable the temperature of the water gets, and as a result, that's where bait fish pull up. And if you're a pike, you're trying to find where those bait fish are holding up. So deeper pools where the water's more stable and out of the main flow. So they don't really want to, especially small fish, if they're in the main flow of the river, they're going to be being pushed around a lot. And that's doubly important when it gets into flood conditions where there's a lot of flow through the river. Bait fish and pike will try and find those little back eddies where there's little to no flow. So if you're trying to target fish on a river, pike on a river, try and find those areas which are deeper and which have got less main flow or less flow through them. That's where the bait fish will be, and that's where the pike will be waiting for the bait fish. They don't have to expend too much energy for swimming, they can just sort of sit there and wait. And that comes to the next point, which is ambush points. So they can, pike wants to sit out of the main flow where it doesn't expend any energy. It wants some kind of cover if it can. So, I mean, obviously they are quite camouflaged, so they can sit just on the bottom, but they're looking for an ambush point. So what would be good is a little eddy or just out of like a seam just out of the main flow of the river where they can sit, but right beside the main flow, so things are being pushed past them, so they don't have to go and find it. It gets pushed straight to them. Okay, right. That's everything which I've learned so far. I hope that helps. If you've got any more specific questions, leave a comment and I'll try and answer it as best I can. Now, let's go out and see if we can catch some fish using these techniques. Okay, the weather is pretty atrocious, to be honest. We've not got much here. The visibility's awful. So this is you know, the river's basically in flood. But there are these little pockets. So there could be a pike sitting down in here. This would be where they would be, probably out of the main current, just trying to hang out. Give it a go. I'm going to go up a little bit further to one of the little tributaries where hopefully the visibility is a little bit better. Again, little back eddy. Who knows? You would have thought a pike may well sit in this, just out of the main flow. I'm using a weighted jig fly here, and I was really finding it hard casting this in a sort of traditional way. And then I looked up a video on how to cast weighted flies, and the trick is to keep it under constant tension, so when you're casting, you don't do the sort of hard back, hard forwards. You sort of do a much bigger loop when you're on your reverse cast, which means that the fly line's kind of constantly under tension, sort of like this. So it's round and then through, and that stops you getting that kind of like jag at the end, which makes the fly casting absolute nightmare with weighted flies. Just a little tip, but it was something which I learnt, so I'll hand that over to you guys. A bit of information. So round and then of course your line just all lunges up like that, but that's the technique anyway. I just follow this one. Let's give it another cast and see if he'll go for it again. He completely missed it, but it was right in the margins. Let's see if he'll come up and play ball again. He literally followed it right in here. I don't know. I just saw a flash. Let's give it another go. Oh yeah, there we go. That's it. This one's a little baby one. Okay. Let's get the net out. There we go. Okay. Well, Dave. It's only a little jack. Oh. Hey, don't do your death roll. Okay, open your mouth. Come on. That's it. Okay, just a little jack, but still fun. Oh, that wind. I feel like I should leave my GoPro on. It's seems to be a lot of fish around, or fish feeding anyway. Oh, there we go. There we go. It's a little jack, another little jack. Oh dear. That does not get boring. It's such an aggressive take. Okay. Oh God. How did you manage to not get in the net? Right, there we go. Slightly bigger than the other one. There we go. Single hook. Oh, he's taking it down a little bit deeper. Okay. Another fish, another fish. It's actually making a pretty good account of itself. So I don't think it's a particularly big fish. Didn't look very big. It's the same pike I caught yesterday. It's bizarre. Okay. Not very happy fish. I think it is anyway. I don't know, maybe it's, yes, I think it is. I need to get my landing net out. Maybe. Let's have a look at this fish. Oh my God. Ah, shit. Okay. I don't know, this should be alright. Let's put it right straight back. It already swallowed that. It should be alright. There we go. Off it pops. Skid. No problems. There we go. Little jack. Little jack. Teeny tiny little fish. So if we can, might be able to just de-hook him on the side of the bank. I don't know. That's out. There we go. Little jack. Back in. Okay. Okay, I think we've got quite a reasonable sized pike here. Feels pretty good. Yeah, he's cruising around like a big pike. Let's not give him too much. Oh yeah, this should be a reasonable sized pike, I think. Huh. Nice. Yeah, he's good. He's a double. Now we've got good gear on here. We've got quite a heavy leader. Yeah, he's a big girl. Big girl. Of course, I brought my fucking poxy little net with me today. That was a mess up. Come on. It's a big pike. Come on, in you go. In you go. Okay, let's get it out of the water. Wow. Oh my god. Oh my god. Fuck, we just caught a big one. A really big one. That was a mess up. Come on. It's a big pike. Come on, in you go. In you go. Okay, let's get it out of the water. Wow. Oh my god. Oh my god. Fuck, we just caught a big one. A really big one. It's just on 100. It's just on a metre. 100 centimetres on the mat, on the nose basically. This was on a fly, Hector's jig fly. Let's get this girl back in the water.